Welcome. Well, maybe let's do a brief introduction to ourselves. Like for this podcast, the name of our podcast is "But Nobody Ever Asked Me." So today we're going to ask you. So we don't have a script, so we'll see where the conversation takes us today.
Sounds fun.
But maybe just do a brief introduction of yourself.
I love it. Thank you so much, Bryce. I'm Ashleigh Denise, founder of Judah Christian Apparel, where we empower bold believers through fashion. And that's really been my biggest project right now. I'm excited to hear more, to have a great conversation with you all and go from there.
Perfect. All right. Introduce yourself, Christian. Know what you're working on.
I'm Christian Brubaker. My company is Candid Systems LLC. It's still in the infancy stages, but I'm building it into the best version of itself that I feel like I can make it. The whole goal of my company is avoiding the vendor lock-in and subscription model that feels like it kind of chokes out small businesses. I want them to feel like the business owner owns and my company manages.
We've met a couple of Joey. Joey's all about, what's your why? If you've been like, what's driving you? Why is it that you want to do what you're doing?
It actually comes from a much longer story, but a close childhood friend of mine had called me because a business owner friend of theirs had a situation where they were very upset with their IT company, about ready to go nuclear, rip the entire IT company out, and have my friend try to take it over. It feels like the small business wasn't their ideal customer anymore. Like they were more focused on corporate client. You can walk into a store, see a blinking light on an access point, and figure out what went wrong, what's wrong, what it's doing, how it's causing all these issues that they've been fighting for months. And it's been there since I used to work there over 5 years ago. Why don't you have your own company? And I didn't have a good answer to that. My company's entire goal and branding is built on transparency. We'll keep your whole network up as reliable and secure as possible, and have it so if your business outgrows us, I want you to be able to fire me today and your network stays on tomorrow. But that's the point. My company manages it, keeps it online, keeps it maintained, but the business owner owns. They have the entire control over that network. It's all in-house. None of that. I want you to own it.
I've done a lot of work for a lot of organizations. A lot of times people you bring up something interesting that there's boutique consulting firms and then there's the large consulting firms, for example, and what it is that I do. There's an old cliche back there is nobody ever gets fired for hiring IBM, right? And so like if you're a big company and you had a big project, you are not the champion of that project. Your company is the one that said you need to go do that project. Like if you go hire one of the big boys to do a project for you and the project fails, you can always blame the consulting company rather than take the blame yourself. It's like, I went out and bought one of the best companies. We paid top dollar and we got the top firm. And so really what they're doing is CYA, right? If there's any problems, we can just say, well, we hired the best. A lot of time there's a mix match when if you don't have a huge budget or you have a problem in your company that you're trying to solve and you need to go solve that problem, you have to go find a smaller, more niche company. From a consulting perspective, that's often the two plays is either you have a buyer who they're buying you based on reputation, or they got a problem, their reputation is online and they don't have a huge budget. It's not they're buying the reputation, they're buying trust from you. And they need to be able to kind of have that connection with you, right? And that's what they're buying, you, not. They need you to solve that problem. If this thing, the whole thing blows up, it's not my fault. We brought them in. Or they don't have the budget and then in that case, they're buying your trust, they're buying your reputation. It sounds like you're sort of keying in on that second part is like my buyers are not big bucks, big budget people, when they engage you, they want to trust you to be able to help solve their problems.
My buyers are especially focused into high efficiency and high reliability because my brand is entirely built on trust, transparency, and reputation.
Yeah, that's good. What about yourself? What is your why for your business?
There's so much. I mean, even listening to you and Chris talk right now, ultimate why is really the business of confidence, right? So like I would say for the Cup of Joey is my mission is to please God and serve people And I'm actually an ex-consultant. So I used to work in strategy consultant. I'm also an ex-mechanical engineer. So it's so interesting how everything ties together. I felt like I was just on this journey of why am I here? Right. And I think when I started in mechanical engineering, it was like, okay, people tell you you're good at math and science, you're smart, so go be an engineer, like you'll make money. But when it was actually COVID that shook me up. I was living alone in Indiana. So I'm from Houston, out of state, and I got really sick. I got long COVID for months, and I was working in pharma at the time, and I was an essential worker. So I was like getting tested every week, actually. Things stuck up my nose, painful, still positive. Things stuck up my nose. And I was like sick, and it was just, I needed that push. And sometimes we need a dramatic moment to really open our eyes to see, like, why am I doing this? Making life-saving medicine. I feel bored. Why am I doing this? So I actually spent a year teaching English. I was like, I want to do anything but engineering, which some people have, like, as you're talking, you could tell there's a passion behind it. I didn't have that. I'm like, okay, well, something's off. So I spent a year teaching, and then I came back to Houston, and I really loved leadership is what I noticed when I was teaching. And I was like, okay, but I want to move more towards adults. So I actually came back to Houston to Rice to get my MBA. And that's where I started to look into consulting. And because I just love talking to people. I love problem solving. But even when I was in my consulting job, I'm like, something doesn't feel right. Like it doesn't feel like, I feel like I'm being put in a box, and I have all this potential that I haven't even self-actualized yet. And I just know I need to take this next step, like this business of Christian apparel, which is so interesting because I actually don't even have like a fashion design background, but I got the idea. I was like, okay, I'm bolder in my faith now. Actually, it was like career journey, but also faith journey at the same time, going from like, do I believe to now like, yes, I believe. Now I want to be on fire and I want to showcase this. So it honestly is like paralleling just with my life journey. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm going to do this. So I've been learning like sewing and meeting with suppliers and the essence of fashion design, etc. But the ultimate point is really like, how are we using the gifts that we have for the betterment of others? Right. And that's where I get like the please God is like, okay, that's my main priority. It also helps me center around every other relationship because now I'm not relying on a husband or a best friend to center me. I have it centered. And now by extension, everything else is like, okay, now that I want to care for people, I want to love people love my neighbor as myself. How do I show up in these spaces? And it's like y'all are now a part of the journey. I'm still building. Like we've launched Valentine's Day actually with the theme Back to Our First Love. And it's been beautiful just how much you can see the impact on others. Like though I don't see the full vision on where it's going, it's like these building blocks. And you'll see that too, like as you're growing, you probably already see it. It's like these building blocks. I'm like, okay, I'm taking a step out on faith, starting this business in the middle of a potential questionable economic environment, leaving all that security. But it's really not only taking a step on me, like taking a step and believe that I can do it, but also that I'm backing up the faith that I speak about. So it's beautiful to kind of see how it's impacting others. And even who I originally thought it was for, like originally like Christian young adults, but now we're getting like all types of customers. So really seeing like, who am I really serving and how can I make sure that when they experience Judah, that it's the best experience and truly serving whatever needs. It's tough because with fashion, it's like, what need are you can really say like, what need are you really serving? Like there's so many different brands. There's so many different things. Like people can go to Shein and they could go to Zara, blah, blah, blah. But because it's value based as well as faith-based, it's communicating identity, right? Like when people show up, they know in a Judah piece, they know that they're showing up as a bold believer, and there's other bold believers around that are also showing up in that space. So it's in a way like forming a new community that I never would have expected when I started. Just how there's an interconnectedness through that. So
Just nice.
All right, we're gonna go deep
okay.
in on this conversation because it's funny. So um I so I heard something here recently, and somebody was proposing this idea. So let's bounce it off of the two of you, and I'm sure each of you will have very strong perspectives on this. So here's the idea, that there are three categories of things. There are facts, one end of the spectrum. These are things that are objectively measurable, right? The sky is blue, this table is hard. These are measurable, these are facts. And on the other end of the spectrum, there is faith, where faith does not require facts in order for there to be faith. And then there's a thing in the middle that this person proposed, and she states, this is belief. Beliefs are strongly held convictions, but can change, right? If presented with enough information, at some point, people's beliefs don't change frequently, but people's beliefs can change. Facts, in theory, are, and what she stated is sometimes people can combine fact and beliefs, that they believe their beliefs are factual, and sometimes that causes friction. But people's beliefs over time can change. And what she stated is, at the end of the day, we are all human, and our brains are biological devices that take in information. And my degree was in cognitive science, so I've done a lot of neuro. I pay attention to neurocognitive development and these sorts of things. That are, as humans, we are
Information seeking.
We're very good at detecting patterns and because our brains are simply not capable of taking in all of the information that's out there in the world. Like, our brains cannot comprehend everything that is presented to us, right? And so what our brains do is then we sort of try to make sense of what it is that we're taking in. Our eyeballs, for example, are just devices that take in light. Our brain then translates all that information and puts meaning to it. Right. And so we are just sort of pattern recognition. And if we see something repeatedly over and over and over again, then that ultimately turns into a belief. Right. And it's like, I've seen this 100 times. I believe it's going to happen. Next time I encounter this, I believe that will happen again. Most of the time we don't understand. We just take these for granted. They just sort of, they are what they are. I don't know. What's your initial reaction to those three categories of things: facts, beliefs, and faith? How does that feel to you?
I would ask for definitions, because I think we each three can come up with a definition. Like, what's a good working definition for fact for you, belief, and faith?
The way that she described it, facts are things that are objectively measurable.
Okay.
And objectively repeatable. Anyone that they measured it would reach the same conclusion. Now, it is true that I can present a different set of facts to your facts, and we can reach different conclusions about a thing. If we were to say, I'm going to take a thermometer and stick it in the ham, 150 degrees or whatever, it's objectively measurable, and most reasonable people would come to the same conclusion every time because it's objectively measurable. Faith is exactly opposite of that. There's no way to measure it. By definition, it's something that's beyond our capacity as humans to measure. Right? There's no facts.
That's interesting, because I would say, like, in Christian faith, how it's described actually is faith is the evidence of things hoped for and things unseen. This is in Hebrews. And so it's actually how it's described when it says evidence is substance, is actually like something tangible, something measurable is how it's described. And it also says, like, faith without works is dead. So if I were to say, like, I have faith that, I don't know, what's a good, like, easy example? Like, I have faith that I'm going to buy a house, right? But then my evidence, I'm saying, like, now I'm looking for apartment complexes, or now I'm, like, not looking at all and just expecting a house to move or pop up out of thin air. It's faith in that case is like, no, my evidence is, okay, now I'm setting a budget. Now I'm actually researching houses in the area. Now I'm actually talking to realtors. It's movement with the faith versus just like, I have faith and I'm throwing it out there. That's why I asked about, like, your definition, because I think parts of how at least I define faith, which also is like, it's subjective. Everyone has their own definition. But it's something that there is something that is measurable about it, but there's also that element of, but I also don't know what's going to happen. Like, if I have the faith for a house and then the whole city turns on fire, okay, well, then I believed for that house, but I'm not going to get it just given stuff's out of my like jurisdiction, out of my control, right? There's an element, I mean, of all of our lives is out of control. We don't know when the hourglass flipped over, when any of us will go. So at some point, like there's a level of understanding that there's stuff that we just can't define. So I need to noodle on that a little more because I define faith a little bit differently. So I know that's going to impact like how I would answer.
Yeah. No, well, that's what I mean, it's just open conversation, which it helped me to hear her definition of what is a belief, right? Where is a belief is something that we feel very, very strongly about, but that beliefs can change over time, right? Like if we presented, like, so earlier you had said sometimes we have a big moment in our life, right? And sometimes, we've all heard the expression, I hit rock bottom. And then at that point, a lot of times people's belief system changes at that point, or at least relative to that thing. Like we've sort of hit rock bottom. And now, like, I've seen where this thing goes. And now I realize I need to change. I need to take a different path, right? I've got, sometimes people are like, well, I've got nothing left to lose, so I'm doing this thing, right? And so when you hear somebody say that, I've got nothing left to lose, it's like their belief system has changed at that point. Whereas up to that point, maybe that's the thing that was holding them back, is that they felt that they did have something to lose. And they were too afraid to tackle it because maybe their belief was, I don't want to lose this thing that I've got, so I'm just going to hold on to it. But now that I've hit rock bottom, you can sort of let that go. There's nothing to hold on to. And now all of a sudden that person is freed from that burden and can soar and take off. I don't know. We've been talking. What's your...
Okay. I feel like y'all have very good points, but my, I guess, definition kind of intertwines all three because all of them are highly dependent upon perspective. What is fact to you may be illogical or completely different than what's fact to someone else, where I can say this is hot and that is a fact to me. Like, you cannot change my mind. I can measure it. It is hot. But then someone else's perspective, maybe someone that works around heat all the time, or around the oven, or in mechanic or forging, their definition of hot is vastly different based on their perspectives. And so at the end of the day, whether it's faith, we're believing in something that you can't quantify, or fact, where you're believing in something that you feel you can quantify, it all boils down to perspective, because your ideology, or I guess what you feel is the driving force in any of that, whether it be anywhere on that spectrum, is solely centered around your perspective. Where, an example, my perspective is there's never an argument. There's always a lack of communicable difference in perspectives. So I've had close friends where we have had heated discussions where we are effectively saying the same thing, and we feel that we're saying the same thing, but we both feel unheard because the way that we were interpreting what we were each saying was coming through differently, where I was saying this is one thing and the other, in the sense of they're both together. In his perspective, it was essentially saying this is one thing, but, and then negating the first part and only stating the second, where my definition of and but were very separated from their definition. And so that's where, just like even going back to the sky is blue, I mean, that is correct in some perspectives from where we are, but if an astronaut is in space, their sky, depending on your definition, is black, and the blue is a hue based on whatever comes through the atmosphere. Like these things can all be dissected or encompassed in a way that you can be right and wrong no matter what you say in anything you say. So to that point, it's faith, but not. So all of it boils down and into perspective to me.
I appreciate that. I'll give you a physical example of that. I just heard recently about, have you guys know about cold plunging?
Yes.
And like, it's a big thing, to jump in a bath of ice water. Like, it's And it's supposed to be all this restorative. And so there was somebody that was saying, I think sauna and heat therapy is actually more beneficial for your health than cold plunging. Uh, the cold plunging is like very trendy at the moment. And so somebody first said that they went deep and to explore the benefits of heat. And one thing that they said was interesting is if you go to, say, San Francisco and the temperature gets to be like 80, 85, people start dying. Like literally people start dying. But you go to Arizona, it's like 120 and like people are fine. Like literally people adapt to heat where in the environments that you're in, like you can become more, you can grow and learn how to be adaptable to heat. And those of us that live in Houston, we know that. You have people that we've had visitors that come in and they're like, how does
"Bye."
anybody survive here?
Yeah.
Or we've also had the scenario, like just the other day, like the temperature dropped to like 40 the other night and the wind was blowing and like we were out, we were all free. Like it was so cold. We were just not mentally prepared for that cold. So to your point, like context matters, right? Like I
Very
think that context and perspective matters and how we form our opinions.
I can definitely relate to that because I was a over the road trucker for 4 years and I went
Oh,
all the
wow.
way from the top of the country all the way to the bottom of the country. I've been in severe negative degree weather, blizzards, XYZ, or I guess snowstorms, flurries, where I've been running a semi and suddenly a flurry comes in and the visibility drops to near nothing and massive pileup happens around me. I mean, I know how to drive in these situations. And thankfully, I was by some miracle completely unscathed. Many, many issues around me, but I somehow never got touched. But the point being, I can come down here and it's snow, sleet, ice, what have you. It doesn't phase me because I'm used to that. And I understand that the infrastructure here is not designed for it. So I know, even though maybe I know how to drive in this, the salt truck, y'all don't have as many salt trucks. Like the roads are not going to be salted. So the ice is going to build up whether you can see it or not. I know how to navigate this regardless of the situation. And that is the adaptability that comes from the perspectives of how I've seen, learned, and adapted to the environments I've been exposed to.
You know what's interesting about that? I moved to Detroit for a few years and I remember driving down the freeway and I'm like, okay, I think I got this. I'm safe. I'm driving. It was a snowstorm. I'm going down the freeway, white knuckling it. And I'm feeling as confident as I can be in a completely nerve-wracking situation. And I look over to my right and it was a car doing a 360 next to me.
Yep.
Right. Where I realize it doesn't matter how good I'm driving right now. If the person next to me smashes into me, it has nothing to do with what I'm doing.
Completely out of your control.
It's completely out of my control. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Like it's like I can be doing the best that I can be doing, but I can't control all the variables that are in play right now.
Just like in my incident, I saw brake lights well ahead of time and I was slowing down, stopping well ahead of time because I was trying to be the best driver I could be and making sure that I don't just look ahead of me. I look as far as I can see. And as soon as I saw multiple brake lights lighting up, I knew, okay, flurry just hit. Something's probably happening. I'm going to slow down before I even get close to it, just in case. Thankfully, I did. And I slowed down and was able to stop safely and did not hit anyone ahead of me because it was a pileup. The people around me may not have been paying as close attention and were unable to. And that's what resulted in like 100+ vehicle pileup, many like massive accident, people flying off into the ditch from getting hit and cars sliding sideways and semis jackknifing. And if I'd have moved when I first thought I could probably slip around and get through, something told me not to, and I just stayed. And sure enough, a few seconds later, a semi came jackknifing, hit the concrete barrier, and his trailer came swinging inches from the bumper of my truck. If I'd have moved when I first thought maybe I can slip through, that'd have caught me in the driver door and probably would not have been good for me. But I listened to my gut, my intuition, my learned knowledge through the experiences I've been exposed to know that this is still a little too chaotic. I want to give it a little bit more so I know that no one else is going to slide into me before I commit to moving into this location. And to be fair, I couldn't have known one way or the other. I could have started moving, or even after I started moving, someone else could have came flying out of nowhere or jumped the median. Like there's always a factor you can't account for or know about, but it all boils down to what you're exposed to and how you attempt to navigate it as best as you can. And that's why I don't really feel like I have many regrets, because I mean, I've done things I don't like that I've done, but I did the best I could with what I knew at the time. And then I grew and learned from there. And I try to make sure I don't make mistakes again. I don't feel regretful of my life. I do what I can with what I have, as I've always done. My kind of philosophy is I may not be where I want to be, but I'm certainly not where I was. And that's plenty good enough for me.
I actually said that this week, but that's faith. Like that's a part of faith too, right? It's like you could have died in this
Many
situation.
times.
And though you did have that belief that though you did have that belief of, okay, well, I've been through this before, there was still even an element of faith of like, I haven't been through this day before.
That was the worst one.
Right. I haven't been through this day before. So it's a great example of like, you have the evidence from what you've past been through. Your belief is like, I believe it that I'll make it through today, right? Hopefully. And then you had an element of faith. It's actually beautiful to just see like how all of it, the root of everything, whether it be fact, belief, or faith, it's all your mind. It all ties back to your mind, right? Like even when we're talking to people, we're not just talking to them, we're talking to their mind. What do they believe? What do they not believe? What have they
Yep.
experienced? What is their nervous system responding to? Right? Like we project a lot onto others. Like even when you were mentioning, Chris, like the argument with your friend or like discussion as you describe it. But you're not only talking to that friend, you're talking to everything they've been through. You're talking through to everything that they believe or everything that they value. And it's so interesting how like even as founders, we have to be mindful of that with our customers of like what headspace are they in? You know, can they even receive the product I'm bringing to them? You know, and in a faith-based business, that's something I always have to be mindful of like, I never want it to be, I need to sell you this versus I'm listening to you. So there was people that stopped by. We did like a pop-up recently. We've been doing a lot of pop-ups to build our brand awareness. And some people just stopped by to talk to us on like whatever God has put on their heart. And they may have wanted prayer and like nothing to do with Christian apparel, but it's being mindful of like, the person and what does that person need and what do our customers need. And I feel like that all ties into where you were going with it too. Of like, we have to be mindful of what do our customers believe? What do they have faith in? What movements are they even willing to be behind? And really trying to understand like the psyche. Like that's been the biggest thing of like, what are they going through right now? What's their biggest pain point? What are they annoyed about? What are they excited for? And really digging into like, where are they coming through? Where am I? And also being self-aware of like, what do I believe? What am I projecting onto others? Right? I can't assume everyone's a Christian. So where am I meeting them? Well, how am I meeting them? How am I showing up? Just really being mindful of other people's minds, but also knowing where you stand and what you can tolerate, or maybe you need another person to help balance that out. Like I'm very direct and blunt. So I tend to like work with people that are more like have the gift of mercy and they're more kind and they're more like gentle. But I love that because I'm self-aware enough to know like that's not a part of my personality I've tapped into yet. So that's the beauty of other people too, of like, hey, come in with your mind on gentleness and kindness and let's work together and let's build this. And it's really centered around the mind.
Like that can be quantified into, it boils down to a person's core values, their perspectives and experiences, because someone that goes through the exact same situation could develop a fear of driving, understandably, because their core value is that they're afraid of XYZ happening. And that situation showed them that they had too close of a call. I get where they can come from. Whereas on my side, it's okay, well, this happened. Nobody intended for it. Nobody's at fault per se. Like, sure, there are things that could have been done better, but I can't expect everyone to have the same level of experience as I do. So, I mean, somebody might not have known to not hit the brakes that hard, because if you're on potentially ice, you hit the brakes, you lose your traction, you start sliding. You have to be very soft on the brakes. You have to start way early if you're going to slow down on something that might be icy. I have the understanding and perspective of that because of my training and experiences. I don't know that everyone else does. So that's why at my core, I ground everything in the belief that everyone wants to help each other at the end of the day. They just don't know how to do it effectively, or they might be in a position where they have to prioritize what is at their core, like family over what they wish they could do. Don't believe that even going as far as like criminals, most people don't want to be criminals. Like they just do what they feel they have to in the situation they're in. And it all boils down to we just need to figure out how we can better help each other so that no one feels in that situation. And part of that is not blaming the next person for not having the same core or values or perspective that you do. Because where one person might be faithful and very religious, someone else may not. And at the core, it's not that you are so different. You both wish to help each other. It's just that you have different beliefs based on your own experiences and perspective. And that's okay. Personally, don't care where you come from, what your beliefs are. My only goal is I wish to help out others as best as I can. And I'll follow my core to whatever it takes me and whatever life it leads to. And if I can help others, I can, and I will. And I will help anyone else to try to do the same to the best of my ability. And that's about as far as I can do because I can't control the environment. I can't control what others think. I can't control others' perspective. I can't control others' decisions. I can only control my own. So
That's great. Yeah, that's definitely true. And so we're all here as entrepreneurs. And so I think we've had some great conversations. Two thoughts come to mind is like some of the conversation that we've had today, like how does that help you show up in how you're running your business? Or we could take a similar idea where we could blend those two things together. Like if you could go back 5 years from now, based on kind of where you are, what advice would you give you 5 years ago to help you? What didn't you know about starting a business that you are now learning about starting a business that you were surprised about, right? You're like, wow, I didn't expect I was going to be spending all this time on this thing. I'll give you one example. A guy that I spoke with here recently, he said, we're building an AI product. We can just, we can systematize and automate all these sorts of things. And I was like, well, what are you spending your time on? Well, 50% of my time is out there raising money, talking to people. I'm like, so you have a product that you're trying to automate a whole bunch of stuff, but you're spending most of your time actually still talking to people. It's like, that's an interesting paradox. So I don't know. What do you find that you were surprised that you're spending X amount of time on a thing that you didn't realize that was going to be what was going to be needed to start your business?
Ugh, so many questions. Which one should I tackle first, though? X amount of time or the 5 years?
Because sometimes those two things are maybe the same thing.
Yeah.
what's the most
or
effective
similar.
answer?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh my goodness. There's so many things you learn by doing. I would say one thing I didn't expect is how much time I'm spending on like marketing and making content online. I'm like, why can't this just be done? But what the beauty of that is I'm learning the art of storytelling through it. And so 5 years ago, I would tell myself, really focus on the story on anything you're doing, like really making sure that you are communicating. Communication is so important. So important. And sometimes you need other people, right? Like I think, Chris, when you were talking earlier, you mentioned like you're soloing this, you're just going for it. And that's beautiful. Like at the start of founding, I was also in that mind of like, okay, I'm going to fund this, no debt. Like it's going to be me in my apartment. We're going to do this. We're going to launch to the world. We're going to the nations. Right. Just going big dreams, which I still believe we are. But one thing I had to check a couple weeks ago, and it was like, you were never meant to be doing this alone. There's this book called Who Not How. If you haven't, have you read it? Have you read it? Or it's on audiobook. Listen to it. But what it's saying is, instead of saying, how can I get this done? How can I work on marketing? It's reframing it and saying, who can help me work on marketing? Like starting to invite other people into the problems that you're having. Okay, if you're not as strong as accounting or finances, who can help me with my accounting? And you'd be surprised how like it'll all align. Like I literally was having that question of, who could help me with accounting? And I met an accountant. I literally sat next to an accountant. We were working together. But it's one of those things where if you don't start to reframe it and you start to think, it's me. If it must be, it's up to, if it's up, what is it? If it must be, it's up to me. You're going to be the bottleneck in your business because you cannot create a system where it's only you. if a system is really sustainable, I should be able to hand it to Chris and say, here, run Judah. And he should be able to take it and run with it. That's when you know you've built a really good system in your business. And that's what I'm working on. Now that I've had this mind shift of I need people, I really do.
The groundwork.
Yeah. Setting the groundwork and the SOPs and like really making sure it's not just up to me. Like it's going to grow with other people. If it's just me and I'm the one having to respond to the emails and suppliers are on me and accounting and marketing's all on me, it's going to break because I'm not a system. Together, we built the system.
Yeah.
I feel like that
That's good.
depends on the scope that you're aiming for, because at my stage, I'm not capable of providing the value that someone might be capable of providing me. And my core values would not align with taking services from someone or advice from someone that might know more than me on something if I can't feel like I can compensate them fairly. So even though I believe in my company, I believe in the concept, I believe in XYZ, at my core, sure, it would be great to have a team, but it's not something I would entertain until I have sufficient capital, clients, what have you, to make it happen. Because I don't want to ever have, let's say I hire someone, they leave their nice job at a big firm and they come work for me, and then life things happen and all of a sudden, oh, I'm so sorry. Like, I don't want that in any regard. And that's where I believe in what you say, but I also believe it highly depends on where you are, because you can have your boutique business at a certain scale, and then as you have a increased demand and need and market acceptance, then you can scale naturally with it. So that's why my focus on company is very much going to be narrow at start, especially while I make sure the groundwork is solid, the business practice is solid, the entire concept is solid. And when I start getting to a point where I have more clients that wish they could have me, then my capacity allows and I have enough capital and verifiable revenue that I can certainly say, if I hire you, I can promise at least 3 months that you will be paid. That's my milestone personally. That is when I will say, okay, I can set that capital aside and make sure that I can keep my people right. Then I will expand into my network, onboard people to make sure that the company can take on more clients, expand naturally. But that's more up to the community than it is up to me, because I don't want to throw caution to the wind or burn my own futures down just chasing this passion project per se. But I also am not going to not believe in it. Like, I'm going to put everything I can into it. And that's why I'm making sure I do my groundwork and initial layers first, so that should it succeed, should it fail, I've done everything I can say I can do to make it happen.
But what is what have you been surprised about as you've been launching into entrepreneurship and kind of your stage of where you are at right now? What do you feel like you had a view that this is how I'm going to go do it, and then you got to where you are right now, and you're like, wow, I'm spending a lot more time on this thing that I didn't anticipate. Like, what do you think has been the challenge, or how would you coach your previous self? Like, what have you learned here recently that's been surprising?
I think the best answer I can give to that is I've known I've had a passion in this field for a long time. I've had plenty of people that have believed in me and my projects, personal, what have you. I've even had incidents where my vision and leadership or even fabrication of projects was so successful that it died from its own success. And ultimately, the thing holding me back was me, my imposter syndrome per se. I always felt like I am not at a point quite there that I can really start to try to navigate an entrepreneurship type role. And it took that major event where a childhood friend from forever ago reached out and had a crazy event. And I drove all the way up to Arizona to help them. And that was when they asked that question, why don't you have your own company? Not having a decent answer to that is what set that tipping point. So I think if I could go back 5 years and tell myself anything, I would probably propose that same question. It's like, okay, you have all this passion, all this interest, all this XYZ. Why don't you do something with it? And, I mean, I've had troubles and hardships and what have you. There's valid reasons on why I didn't move certain ways at certain times, but having that in my mind sooner probably would have helped me to become successful sooner.
Well, that's just a question. It's a very good question, but that's just a question. How did you answer that question? And what did you do with that? What did you do with the answer to that? What is the answer to that question? And what did you do with that? How did that change you?
Well, that was it. I didn't have an answer to that question. He asked me.
I know, but now you've moved forward. So like, how did you move forward from that?
That's what I was saying or going to say is, I didn't have an answer to it. Because I'm a very passionate person, if I don't have an answer to something, I will try to find the answer to it.
Mhm.
So I immediately started doing my due diligence, looking into what is the cost to starting a business? Is there benefits that I'm eligible for? Is there market need for my vision? Is there ways that I can use my core and my passions to help the community or the businesses? Or is there a way that I can spot a need, which I very much did, that I feel like I can leverage my own experience in everything to help address? So I started taking what I knew, what I had, and what I am, and applying it to see what's viable, what's possible, to find an answer to it. And the answer was, yes, I can start a business. It's perfectly possible, plausible even. And the more I look into it, the more I come to these networking events, the more people I talk to from all levels, from fellow students to C-suite executives at Fortune 500s, the more people that get so interested in my vision and supportive in the community, the more I feel I probably should have started this sooner, because I've always had these core values. I've always had this interest. I've always had the passion, and I'm always learning, of course, especially the industry I'm in, it's changing every day. So that feeling of never being enough, it's not going to go away. You're never enough unless you allow yourself to be. And so that was my way of answering the question is, okay, I don't have an answer, but I'm going to find out. And the more I look into it, the more I find I can, and I will, because ultimately my core value is to help others. And I feel like my company can do that. And that's what I'm building it into.
I feel like that's
That's awesome.
a good going back to facts, beliefs, and faith. Prior to that point, you didn't have the belief in yourself, right? And then suddenly that question was posed, and all of a sudden now you have a new belief. You went and did research. It's like, now I actually know how to do it. It's not that mysterious. Once you understand the pieces, then so he posed that thought and planted that seed. Then now you have that belief that I can do this. And from this point forward, like that was a key pivotal moment for you. Like that's very interesting.
And I'll even take it a step further. It's like you finally saw, while you might not have had the belief in yourself, you saw someone else's belief in you. And sometimes the reason that we do have this imposter syndrome, say that 3 times. The reason we do have that imposter syndrome, the reason we do have that fear or lack of faith is because no one has ever believed in us up until that point. And so as a lot of entrepreneurs I know too, as we're embarking on this journey, that road less traveled, that many people don't have the courage or the faith to believe that they can do it and do it well. We do need people to come on our path to encourage us, to speak that belief in us, right? Because then it's changing our mind. It's like, okay, now I have new data. And that's where the belief changes. Now I have new data that I can do this, right? I can solve someone's IT problems. I can be there. I can get good feedback on this, right? There is that need. And it begins to change how we view ourselves. And no, it's not going to be easy, because as you go on this journey, which you already know, as we go as entrepreneurs and the entrepreneur listening right now, there's going to be that wall each time when you're hitting a new level in your business on, can I do this? Like, where is the faith to believe that I can do this? And that's where having that community is so, so important, to say like, okay, well, if Chris did this, I can do this. And if Ashleigh did this, I can do this, right? And that's where we start to just move, even though we have those voices and that fear talking to us all the time. Like, you can't do this. I'm like, I can do this. You can do those affirmations in your mirror, but whatever it takes to really lean in and just go for it.
Mm-hmm. One of my favorite.
To follow up on that, just a little one. I feel like that all builds into the best thing you can do for yourself, especially if someone believes in you, is to figure out, okay, I have this wall, I have this blocker, I don't know how to do it. Acknowledge you don't know how to do it, and then figure out what's the next best way to figure out how to do it. I'm going into these waters uncharted. I have no family, no experience, blah, blah, blah. I don't know how to start a business from a stance of I've had no experience in it, but I'm surrounded by people that do. And I know there's community that I can go explore and meet and then talk to people that are, and I can help build those skills that I know I don't have. And that was my way of confronting that. Okay, this is my wall. This is how I break through it. And went and started networking, and it's been a great experience. Yes. So I, I believe that what you say is very strong. And I feel like making sure you take that and just choosing what is a viable way for you to try to break through that wall, even if it's uncomfortable. And that's very important in anything entrepreneur, because there's always going to be things you can't do. You don't know how to do. You don't even know how to start to do. Ask others. Go to a networking event. Go to a Defense and Space Force event that they had 2 days ago. I haven't worked in any of that since I was in the Army. I'm sure I'm well out of the game, but I can go and talk to people. Never a problem with that. And yeah, it's been great.
That's great. Well, I really appreciate this conversation today. I think we've really spent a lot of time talking about, like, we are all a network. We all need other people. I love the recommendation on the book, the who, not is it
Not how.
who, not how, which understanding that we are all interconnected and that we need each other. So even though we are entrepreneurs and sort of out there on a lonely road by ourselves, I'm a distance runner. So I often say, if I'm running a race, I'm the only one who's responsible for getting me to the end of the race. And so sometimes that paradigm is very useful for me sometimes. And other times that's very limiting, right? And so I always have to, like, I've heard, like, sometimes your greatest power is also your greatest weakness at the same time. And so I have to check myself to understand that I have a lot of self-reliance, but I can't do it alone. I need to stop and I need a coach. I need somebody to, I need a massage therapist. I need I need all,
leader,
yes.
gym partner.
Need to take a break and go take a breather out doing social things, go to a bar, club, whatever.
Yeah, I appreciate the conversation. Thank you very much. I'm honored that you two joined, and I love the conversation today. So
happy to be.
all right. Well, thank you to both of you.